The media are pounding Marjorie Taylor Greene once again, and the Georgia Congresswoman is giving them plenty of ammunition, such as this interview with reporter David Brody.
We can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
She also tweeted this: vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star. After 5 days of silence, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy said Marjorie is wrong, and her intentional decision to compare the horrors of the Holocaust with wearing masks is appalling. And his Senate counterpart Mitch McConnell calling the Republican freshman's comments outrageous and reprehensible. Joining us now is Susan Faricio, chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Here's the media question: are journalists encouraging Marjorie Taylor Greene by giving so much coverage to remarks that even some top Republicans find to be outrageous, and that's how she gets attention?
Well, Republicans and Democrats are engaged in what I call a labeling war. Each side try to identify the other as an extremist party. And the media loves that kind of conflict. They love it. And those make great stories when you talk about conflict between parties and within parties. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is a case of both. She has divided the Republican Party. There are a few there defending her and saying that no one should be telling her what to say or do when she tries to talk about the socialist policies she thinks Democrats are pushing forward. But there are many people within the party that say people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are making the GOP look terrible, and that she should be punished, silenced. Some think she should be pushed out of Congress. She's already lost her committee assignments, although that was Democrats, but she's receiving a lot of criticism, as you just quoted Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy, two top leaders, because that's a danger to the party to have them identified with someone who tries to bring up the Holocaust and compare it to anything in the United States.
But are the media, I mean, is the negative attention helping her in a way, since she doesn't have the committee assignments? The press is constantly looking for any little thing that she says, not defending in any way, shape, or form the Holocaust analogy, but then she can punch back against the press. In fact, in this case, she says she's blaming the controversy on the media and the Democrats.
Certainly with some of her constituents, she comes across as a populist, and she goes after the media, which is something that a lot of people praise because they think the media is unfair in certain parts of the country. It just depends what party you belong to. You're never going to scare the media away from a story like this. The media gravitate to conflict, and they gravitate toward a controversial lawmaker like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So there's going to be a lot more coverage in the future, because depending on what she says, and I think there'll be more of it as we get closer to the next election.
There was a CNN report that both McCarthy and McConnell were pressured into condemning the Congresswoman after initially staying quiet for several days. Does that sound plausible to you, that they would kind of read the political tea leaves and then felt like they had to come out and issue those condemning remarks?
What I know the Republicans loathe to do is react at something that to make it look like they're reacting to something the Democrats want them to do. They're really, everybody, like I say, they're engaged in the labeling war now. Republicans were all too happy to point to the squad, the very liberal faction of House Democrats, for remarks they have made supporting Palestine versus Israel in this latest rocket battle in the Middle East. There's like I say, they want to identify each other as an extremist party. So there's always a reluctance amongst Republican leaders to just dive in and condemn one of their own. Nobody likes to do that, because then you have inter-party conflict.
Right, and Susan, you've set us up perfectly for the next segment. We will see you a little later in the program. Next on Media Buzz, is there a double standard between the Marjorie Taylor Greene saga and the non-coverage of members of the squad making questionable attacks on Israel?